Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Help! I'm stuck in a city of all women, and the last person who had this job is deceased. Okay, I'm back. Here's where stuff gets off the rails, because when I arrived at Hilly's house, I call her Hilly, she's okay with it, I found out some crap about Maria. Lana walked me towards the house, and she had to preface this with, "It's a long walk." "Lana, I see some cars and buses. I need to ask why. Are people walking everywhere? The city is huge," I complained. "Walking is healthy," she smiled to me. "This isn't the United States where we take a car to go 1 kilometer down the road," I grumbled. "Also, there's the Order of Artemis, and let's say they set strict limits on vehicle transportation," she explained. "Do you people worship the Greek gods?" I asked. Lana chuckled. "Yes and no. It's like, do we sacrifice things to the goddesses? No. But there are orders who embolden what each goddess stands for. So this Order of Artemis is strict on pollution?" I questioned. Lana nodded. "Parenthesil is very careful about what technology we use daily. We didn't start generating electricity until wind power became a big thing. And even when we got rid of the old wind turbines, they did so with geothermal power. Solar powers everything else." As we walked, I noticed that, unlike other women her size, folks seemed to be paying attention to Lana, some even giving her a warm greeting. So this artist and Hesty dynamic, isn't it a little, I don't want to say misogynistic, but "There's no men here," I bumbled as I tried to ask my next question. Lana smiled. "We have TV, and we know how the rest of the world works," she explains. "But I know what you're driving at." She frowned a bit as she explained. "Warriors, soldiers, arties, whatever you want to call them, aren't always physically imposing, but, well, it predestines someone to that role." She gave a faint smile. "There are some warriors who look like me, for example. Soldiers who return from battle and are unable to return to the battlefield, but strong enough to work, have taken on roles as Hesties. The divide is not always clear-cut." I nodded, and as I noticed we were passing by someone who stumbled out of a house with a golden apple on the front. She was a taller woman, but thin despite this. She looked around, took a drink of something, and set a small bag on the ground. "Look out below!" she shouted as she dropped a lighter into the bag, setting it on fire. To my shock, most people didn't even try to put it out. They walked past her and the flaming bag on the ground. I began to move towards her before Lana stopped me. "Don't interfere with the Discordian ritual," she frowned. "What's a Discordian?" I asked. The clearly drunk woman looked to me, grinning. "American!" she shouted and pointed. Hi?" I said, a bit shocked at her pointing me out. Lana hissed with clenched teeth. "Don't talk to her." "What?" Lana pulled me away and into the crowd right before people began to look and stare at me. She grunted as we were finally clear of the street. "Okay, I get that you know little about us, but you don't have people who worship nonsense in your country?" I frowned. "Oh, I see them all the time. They pick a fight, like God's punishing our country because gay people exist, or even talk about how the earth is flat. Some complete nonsensical stuff." I nod. "Yeah, we call them crazy." She motioned to the street we had left. "Well, here, they are an order." She frowned. "The Order of Eris." "Eris, as in Eris as in the goddess of discord, chaos, and strife, she spat. They're called Discordians, and they are allowed to practice their religion, as long as there's no damage to personal property. Oh, okay, they seem harmless enough. I cracked a smile. Lana shook her head. They aren't harmless. Most who join the order don't survive for long, whether it's from the drinking or something else. I don't know why anyone would want to lead a life where the goal is to make it miserable for others. Is that their goal? I asked as Lana started walking again. Well, according to those I spoke to, it's not always the case. Some say they want to act out or have fun. But that discourse isn't about harming people, but just about enjoying the moment. She heaved a sigh. But it doesn't seem to be what they practice. Why is there even an order of Eris to begin with? I asked. Lana kept her eyes forward. Eris has an order to give her respect, and to remind us she's always there when war is going on. While Athena brings a measured meaning to war, there's always Eris, bringing about chaos in its wake. She turned to me. Having an order of Eris is an attempt, and superstition, that giving her a little space to let loose her discord will prevent it from following our soldiers as they fight. I nodded as we walked. Okay. To my shock, we passed by a small Christian church, tucked away between a vacant business and a liquor store of all places. Okay, you need to explain this one to me. I motioned to the church. Luna frowned. There's freedom of religion. Everyone is welcome to follow what they want here, she whispered to me. The fanatics in there believe there is only one God, or three. Every time I ask the priestess, she can't keep her stories straight. I think it's the Holy Trinity, right? I looked to the church, the doors shut, appearing vacant. Lana smiled at me. Oh, right. This is the main religion in your country, isn't it? I nodded. Yeah. I gave Lana an appraising look. The priestess there, she's okay with all this lesbian stuff going on out here? Lana rolled her eyes at me. I knew this would come out from you at some point, being from the United States. What's that supposed to mean? I scoffed, getting defensive with her. You people, she grumbled. You're so focused on sexual orientation. People are human, okay? They love whatever. Most people left to their own devices turn out just as we are, bisexual. All the sexual hang-ups you have is just a social construct. She sighs. Yeah, some women here form long-term relationships with one another, but most of the women here, the warriors, have no qualms about taking part in a raid and subduing a man. I frowned, realizing that somehow I've insulted her or her way of life. She was rather passionate about this. You spend so much time separating people without reason. You treat them like they're violated if they mix, she grumbled. For example, me and Vera had a relationship when I was her Hestie, but she was overbearing with it and I left her. Vera plans to go on a raid soon. Her and her new Hestie do not share a bed. She'll raise their child and that's about it. Grace and Nemi are a different animal altogether. They fell in love. Lana pouted. Lucky girls. Okay, I'm sorry, I said, my hands up. I'm not critiquing your culture, I'm just trying to understand it. Lana chewed the inside of her lip for a moment and nodded. Fine, but just know I take offense to all that nonsense about calling people gay or straight. Here you'll find those who are heterosexual, as you call it, are in the minority. She looked to the church, and while some go to that church, I don't believe it's a requirement. I've never heard the priestess there speak of her God hating anyone. She says God is love and such, and so she's okay with all this lesbian stuff. Again, I'm sorry. I apologized a second time. Lana nodded to me. Accepted. She turned on her heels. Now come along, we have another 20 minutes of walking to do. I grumbled as we did so. Along the way I saw a school. Several children were running out to their respective parents. I watched as one little girl ran to a pair of women, one Hesty and an artist, waiting for her. "Mama, Mom!" she shouted, hugging both respectively. "Teacher taught us about stars today." The smaller women picked up the girl and started walking along with her. "Did you tell your mom about the award you got yesterday?" The little girl's eyes lit up. "I got a bronze medal," she beamed. "Mommy told me," the artist grinned to her daughter. "I'm so proud of you." I glanced from the scene and asked Lana another question. "About the kids. How does that work?" "Didn't you not want anything to do with kids?" Lana rebukes, turning to me. "I don't, but here's the thing." I pointed to the family we had passed. "If Hesties don't have kids, why did that little girl call the Hesty Mommy and the artist with her Mom? So how does it work?" Lana nodded to me. "A fair question. Hesties raise the children of the soldiers when they're deployed and when they're come home. Most Hesties remain with the young girl. They raise her until she becomes a woman and sets out on her own path. Some Hesties stay with their respective artists. Some move on to raise a new child, or do what you're doing and elect to be a housekeeper and cook. And you tried to get me into the kid business, where a girl would call me Mom?" Lana shook her head. "The child refers to her Hestie as Mommy or Mama. Mom or Mother is always the artie's preferred parental pronoun." "Say that 10 times fast," I mumbled. Lana asked as we turned a corner. "Nothing, just... To me it's weird to consider having same-sexed parents," I pointed out. "And to me it's odd to have differently sexed parents." Lana got to a large house, and when I saw the size of it, I realized why someone would need a hand caring for it. "Here we are." "That's huge." "Commander Regis is the head of the Royal Guard. As such, she's afforded some affluent amenities." Lana turned to me. "Now I need to give you some ground rules. The commander will cover the cost of groceries. That does not and should not come out of your salary. Tell me if she pulls that scam on you." I nod. "You mentioned a salary, but I never asked how much." Lana nodded. "You'll get about $600 a week post-tax. We use U.S. currency for your information." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. Lana nodded. "When we made our initial alliance with the U.S., their currency was a stronger one, so we just adopted it from what we understood. So far it's worked out well for both parties involved." "Okay, weird. How much is the rent?" I questioned. Lana shook her head. "The commander pays for her own housing. You'll have your own room inside, and again, you should be paying nothing for that. You're entitled to your own personal space. You have personal time as well. You just need to communicate when those days are, so the commander can fend for herself on those days." Okay. The job didn't sound like the worst thing I'd done. Granted, I had yet to meet my employer, let's call her. Lana headed to the door and knocked. First impressions are hard to unmake, so just be polite and we should be fine. She looked to the doorbell and rang it. We waited for another few minutes before Lana looked to her watch. "Oh, for Hera's sake!" She rang again. No answer. Lana rolled her eyes. "I spoke with the commander yesterday and explained I was coming by to fulfill her request." "Maybe she's out," Lana grumbled. "If she is, then it's a direct insult to me, and I'll talk with the Queen about that." "You speak to the Queen?" Lana blushed. "At times." She pulled out a key card. It was then that I noticed there was an electronic lock on the door. Lana shoved her key card in and then placed her thumb onto the black pad and the doorknob. A little LED message flashed. "Administrator override accepted." The door unlocked. "Wait, You can do that to anyone's house? I asked. Lana nodded. Anyone who has a Hestie living in the house, by law, needs to have a lock I can access. No exceptions. She smiled. It's in the case of an emergency, or if I have business with the Hestie working inside. You don't consider that an invasion of privacy? Lana shook her head. Not as long as I'm responsible, but I don't abuse it. She then opened the door. The scent that wafted out of the house was best described as rancid. Lana covered her nose as we walked in. She flicked on the light and we discovered a kitchen that had not been cleaned in months. "Oh, Hillary," Lana lamented. "Oh, God, that better not be the norm here," I lamented. Lana shook her head. "No, it shouldn't be. The commander hasn't had a Hestie here for some time. Almost 6 months, if I recall." "And the last one died?" Lana nodded. "It was very tragic. A little hard on the commander. Still, this is unacceptable." Lana bravely strode towards the kitchen and reached under the sink, pulling out some pliers and a trash bag. "Give me a hand, Madison. We'll knock this out nice and quick." I smiled. "You're helping?" "Are you kidding? I wouldn't leave you to this," Lana scoffed. "We might even need backup." "Well, if you're willing to do it." I headed into the kitchen as if it were a war zone. Catching a pair of gloves, Lana tossed to me. After a few hours, we had the biohazard that was once a kitchen back into serviceable condition. I hefted the last bag of trash out of the back of the house, into a bin when Lana called back to me. "And that's it. The last dish is in the cupboard." "Victory," I chuckled as I walked back inside. Lana peeled off her gloves and turned to me. "Well, the commander is still out, and I'm not inclined to call her, so let's head up to where you'll be sleeping." I peeled my own gloves off and followed Lana up some steps. After a quick turn to the hallway, she stopped at a door. "Here we are, the Hestie quarters." She smiled at me. "I don't think Maria used this room often, which I'm sure makes you more comfortable. There should be a bathroom and such." I opened the door and stopped. The room was dark, but inside I swore I saw a silhouette of a rope hanging from the center and someone dangling from the rope. I flicked the light switch on, fear in my eyes as the light came, and I saw no rope or other person, corpse or otherwise, inside. A tear ran down my cheek as I peered inside. "Something wrong, Madison?" Lana asked. I shook my head. "No, nothing. Just the light must have been playing tricks on me." I looked to the ceiling to spot a ceiling fan hanging. No rope hanging from it. A well-made twin bed sat inside, and there was a picture frame on the small dresser of 3 women, 2 larger women and a shorter one. They were all smiling. I don't think the commander has touched this room since Maria was here." Lana smiled to me. "You have my permission to back anything you find of hers. Just don't throw it out. The commander will make that decision." I nodded. "Oh, almost forgot." She handed me a debit card. "There's 2 weeks of salary on there for you. Make sure you got paid during your training." She beamed. "So if you need to go shopping for clothes, feel free." "Thanks," I said, taking the card, then walking into the room. "I have to ask, how did Maria pass?" "None of your business, to be honest," Lana snipped. "Sorry," I frowned. I was curious. "You'll remain curious unless the commander brings it up," Lana said. "And only if she brings it up. Understand?" Okay. I got off the subject, though the room still gave me a off feeling. I heard a jingling ringtone pop out of Lana's pocket. "Oh, give me a minute." She stepped out and walked downstairs. I investigated the room while Lana took the call. The attached bathroom was a full one, tub, shower, a large sink, and a vanity with a medicine cabinet behind it. The bathroom didn't look like anyone had used it in a while. I checked the taps and the toilet. All seemed to work just fine. Some rings around the toilet and a bit of brown staining on the porcelain sink told me I should stick to bottled or filtered water. It was a decent one-bedroom, to be fair. I checked the drawers to see what was in them, if anything. I opened up 2 to find them empty. When I opened up the 3rd, there was a folded piece of paper inside. On the back, I saw a symbol of sorts. It was a simple symbol. 2 semicircles were back to back, their openings facing away from another, with a large black bar down the middle. On the top and bottom were letters in Greek. It was some kind of letterhead or watermark. I opened the letter up and read the contents. Hillevi, if you're reading this, I'm sure you've found me. I'm so sorry, I am. If only I was as strong as you. I wish I could stand there and weather this turmoil rampaging through my heart as you do. You stood there, so proud of her, giving that eulogy when I could not even see through my tears. I hear you speak of her, and every day my heart withers, knowing she is no longer with us, that I must spend another day without Lyria's smiling face. Worse yet, someday you too will die in battle. The priestesses say that a new embodiment of Athena shall come and begin an even greater war, one that will conquer all. I fear what I would do if you fell in such a war, and it would be a lie if I said I did not want to rush to our dear Lyria's side. I know you will be strong, my artists. I know it. So forgive my weakness, for I cannot live in a world where our daughter's light does not shine. I must follow her to the other side. I will bring her your love. We will wait there for you. Please do not rush here as I have. Be strong, my artists. Forever yours, Maria. I looked up from the note, and in the mirror, I saw a woman hanging from the ceiling fan. I turned on my heels, and she was no longer there. Another glance at the mirror showed nothing. My heart was in my chest, and I dropped the note, chilled to my very core. Madison? I turned to the door, eyes wide, just to see Lana stand. Okay, wait. Madison? I turned to the door, eyes wide, just to see Lana standing there. Are you all right? She hung herself, I said, swallowing hard. Why would you think that? Lana asked, concern crossing her face. I looked down to the letter, picking it up and showing it to her. Lana took it from me and looked it over, saying nothing as she turned to me. The page was blank. Who told you? Lana asked. That paper had a note written on it, I shouted. You need not cover for anyone. I just want to know who's spreading nasty rumors, Lana asked. No one told me. That was a suicide note. Lana narrowed her eyes, glancing at the paper. I will find out who told you, and if you're lying to me, I will know. She frowned as she seemed to notice the watermark on the back. What is that symbol? I asked. It's nothing, Lana said. Before I could press her for more information, the front door opened. Lana stuffed the letter into her shirt and headed to the stairs. I followed. Looking rather confused was a middle-aged woman, still standing tall at over 6.5 feet, wearing formal military regalia. She turned to her steps and narrowed her brown eyes at me. What's this now? She asked. Lana Duvalt, head of the House of Hesti. We had an appointment today? Your new arrival? Lana condescended, using the stairs to keep herself at eye level with the commander. Oh, Miss Duvalt, I'm sorry, she slurred a bit. I had just forgotten about. She looked around to the kitchen. Oh, thanks for that. May I present your new Hesti, Madison Hill, Lana said, stepping down from the steps. I followed. As I got to the landing, I looked up to her and waved weakly. Hi. The commander turned to Lana. She's a foreigner? Lana nodded. Yes, she's here temporarily, so I thought she'd be a good fit for your situation. Commander Hillevy looked me up and down before offering her hand. Commander Hillevy, Artemis Regaeus, she said. Nice to meet you, Maddie. I shook her hand and smiled to her. I had long given up the fight to stop the artist women from calling me a pet name, but I had a way to fight back. Nice to meet you too, Hilly. To my shock, she smiled. I like this one. She's got spunk. I chuckled. Is that a good thing? Well, now I introduced you two. The house is clean. My work here is done for now, Lana smiled. If you have any issues, don't hesitate to call me. She handed me a card. It read, Lana Duvalt, head of the House of Hesty, with her number attached. That looks like a U.S. number, I looked at her. Lana shrugged. I believe our numbers are from a similar city-state in the U.S. So, call you anytime? I asked. Lana nodded. Just leave a message if I'm not there. That's my personal line. I nodded. With that, Lana left. Hilly looked to me. So, as I'm sure nothing in the kitchen was edible, how about I order some euros and you can tell me how on earth an American girl like you got stuck all the way out here? I nodded. Sure. Listen, I'm new here and all, but I'm not looking for any kind of, physical relationship. I'm just here to work. Hilly's smile faded, but she nodded. Sure, no problem. I'm not looking for anything like that anymore anyway. She turned and headed to the kitchen. Not for a long time. It was an unremarkable dinner. I explained to Hilly how I wound up where I am, and she seemed more amused than anything. So you didn't even bother to stop and check when none of the landmarks made any sense? Hilly chuckled. I nodded. Yeah, he was a bit of an idiot there. Hilly nodded. I'd say. Sounds like he was a nice guy, but with a head full of rocks. I've known a man or two like that. I'm shocked you know any men living out there. Hilly's face softened. I knew a couple. One in particular. A hell of a fighter, she sighed. How did you know him? I asked. I'm still, to this day, unsure of what happened that night. The letter not having writing on it. The images I saw in my room in the mirror. But I chalked it up to wild imagination and first-day jitters. That was until Hilly confirmed something all too real for me. He was Lyria's father, she said. Shit, Hilly's back. I've got to go. I'll fill you in on the rest soon. Just know this. Our little meet cute? It went downhill from there. So quoth this raven. This is such an interesting study on cultural norms, roles, and what we expect from life, I suppose. I hope you're enjoying this, and we will have another episode of this next week. Special thanks to Zithero for allowing me to read this. And thank you all for coming to listen in my library. It means so much to me. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Ermin, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, and Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.